Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we are diving into a story that has left many South Africans shaking their heads and asking, how does this keep happening? We are talking about multi-million rand contracts, hospital safety, and political connections. Yes, you guessed it, this time, it involves Deputy President Paul Mashatile and his sons. Reports have revealed that two companies linked to Mashatile's sons were awarded substantial contracts to handle fire safety work in Gauteng hospitals. The companies, Madipodi Nokening and Ingwato and Manzi Group, were paid nearly R47 million for installing and maintaining fire alarms, sprinkler systems, and other critical fire safety equipment. But hold on, it gets even more eyebrow-raising. There are indications that the companies could still claim additional payments, potentially taking the total cost above R49 million. That's almost R50 million of public funds, spent on fire safety in hospitals that, incredibly, still fail to meet the required standards. Yes, you heard that right. Despite nearly R50 million being spent, Gauteng public hospitals are still not fully compliant with fire safety laws. This is alarming because hospitals are supposed to be places of care, not places where fire hazards lurk in the background, threatening patients and staff. Hospitals like Tembiza, which have already experienced fires in the past, remain vulnerable. You have to wonder, where exactly did all that money go? Now, critics are not holding back. They argue that public funds have been expended without delivering any real improvements. Some employees who were retrenched by one of the companies still haven't received their full payments, adding an extra layer of frustration to an already messy situation. Opposition parties are now demanding urgent investigations into how these contracts were awarded and why, despite such a hefty investment, hospital safety has not improved. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine being a patient or a nurse in one of these hospitals, and knowing that fire safety regulations aren't fully met. The risk is real, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, millions of rands have been spent, and yet the basic protections that are supposed to safeguard lives are still not in place. It's not just disappointing, it's dangerous. Observers have pointed out that the situation raises serious questions about governance and accountability. How do contracts get awarded to politically connected entities? And more importantly, why is there no follow-through to ensure that work is completed effectively? This is the kind of story that makes citizens question whether public officials are prioritizing the safety of communities or their own networks. The story also highlights another issue that often goes underreported: retrenchments and worker rights. Some employees who were let go by these companies have not received the compensation they are legally owed. This is not a small matter. In South Africa, where employment opportunities can already be scarce, leaving workers unpaid for services rendered is both unfair and illegal. It adds yet another layer to a narrative that is increasingly looking like mismanagement and neglect. Now, let's talk numbers because they tell a striking story. R47 million was spent initially, with the potential for claims to push the total above R49 million. To put that into context, that's a huge amount of money, enough to fully equip several hospitals with proper fire safety infrastructure multiple times over. Yet, here we are, and the hospitals remain at risk. This isn't just a failure of execution, it's a failure of oversight, monitoring, and accountability at multiple levels. What makes this story even more interesting is the involvement of high-profile political figures. Deputy President Paul Mashatile is not just any politician, he holds one of the highest offices in the country. The fact that his sons are linked to companies receiving such large contracts inevitably raises questions about nepotism and the ethical responsibilities of public office holders. It's a complex issue, because the sons are adults running businesses, but the optics are hard to ignore. Citizens naturally want to know, are political connections influencing the allocation of public funds? And if you think this is just about contracts and money, think again. Hospital fire safety is a matter of life and death. Fires in hospitals don't just damage property, they put vulnerable patients, nurses, and doctors at risk. In the past, hospitals like Tembisa have faced actual fire incidents, which makes this story not just concerning but urgent. When public funds fail to deliver safety and protection, the public has every right to demand answers. So, what is being done about it? Opposition parties have already called for investigations. They want transparency about the awarding of contracts, how the work was monitored, and why hospitals remain unsafe after such substantial spending. There's also increasing pressure from civil society and watchdog organizations for accountability. People want assurance that their money is being used correctly and that their safety is a priority, not sidelined in favor of political connections or corporate profit. Now, let's pause for a moment and reflect on the human element. Behind these numbers and contracts are real lives, patients who trust hospitals to be safe, staff who work long hours to care for them, and families who hope their loved ones are protected. When governance fails to ensure safety, the consequences are tangible. People's lives are on the line, and that's why stories like this matter. It's not just a political scandal or a budgetary blunder, it's a social and moral concern. At the same time, there's a certain irony here that shouldn't be overlooked. Millions are spent, contracts are awarded, and yet the basic purpose, safeguarding lives, is still unmet. If this were a comedy skit, you might call it the hospital fire safety that wasn't. But for those who work and receive care in these hospitals, it's no laughing matter. As this story unfolds, one thing is clear: accountability is essential. Whether it involves political figures, corporate contractors, or government oversight bodies, someone must answer for the apparent mismanagement of public funds. South Africans deserve hospitals that meet safety standards, employees who are paid for their work, and a system that ensures contracts are awarded and executed fairly and effectively. So, what can you do as a viewer? Stay informed, ask questions, and hold leaders accountable. Share stories like this with your network. Engage in discussions about governance and public safety. And don't forget, awareness is the first step toward change. If you found this breakdown insightful and want more deep dives into South African politics, governance, and public accountability, be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. And leave a comment below telling us what you think about this story. Should there be criminal investigations? Should contracts be banned for politically connected companies? We want to hear your opinions. Thanks for watching, and remember, public funds are public trust. When money is spent, it must protect people, not just pad pockets. See you next time.